Hello and welcome to a special edition of Foodinati UK, where I'm going to take you down my top 10 albums that I've reviewed in 2023. That is to say, the albums that I've reviewed, some of these haven't even come out yet. So starting with number 10. Hello and welcome to another edition of Foodinati UK presents Heavy Rotation, and this time we're looking at Pleiades with their album Affinity With. Right, they say Affinity With is inspired by stories of empathy and human nature as Pleiades set out to be the sculptors of a new sonic landscape. So, with that, we say, I was lucky enough to see Pleiades live in Manchester a few weeks back, and I also interviewed them for a future episode of Foodinati UK, which will be coming up in season 4, so watch out for that. Affinity With opens with the gorgeous skittering beats and floating melodies of Honey Guide, and the one thing that you'll find very, very striking straight away is the incredible drum performance on this record. Lushness turns to chaotic mathcore and frantic but measured riffing. This is certainly a ride of a record, and you're going to want to strap in. Siberian follows with the band's post something, I'd say post everything, flag flying high, and the songwriting chops are on display here. They're astonishing too, as is the tremendously agile vocal performance, which has shades of Maynard James Keenan on this track. Slipping in and out at times. Former single Stomach arrives on quick-fire pulses, and machine-like drumming add in the floating guitars and lush vocals, and this is once again a truly immersive listen. Opening into almost jazzy passages, but with overdriven guitars and crushing intensity alongside it. These songs clock in at just under 5 minutes, most of them, and to be honest with you, you feel like you've listened to an epic by the end, such as the morphing, twisting, turning nature of the songs. Looming once again features a stellar vocal performance with very well placed choral backing vocals that are lovely. They're just, the production on them so lush, it's beautiful. The track's bristling with urgency alongside its wandering ethereal passages, and there is a hardcore beating heart in the centre of all of this. Universal starts in an introspective mood with an intimacy that gently opens up but never too much, until that is 3 minutes in, when stark rage takes over and takes us to the final refrain. Very, very effective. Don't get too comfortable on this album. Amos Cliff was the track that I heard live that really brought them to my attention. A post-hardcore masterpiece in my opinion. This is why I have firmly placed Pleiades in my This Band Should Get Their Flowers list. Brilliant. No more words on this tune because they won't do it justice. You just have to go and listen to it now. Following that track is going to be tough. So we have a reprise in the form of Honey Guide 2 in terms of the title. An angrier brother or sister to Honey Guide? I don't know. All I know is that it lilts on pretty melodies and lush chords after its furious introduction. Then we drift into this kind of precision riffing that The Ocean do so well, with clinical dexterity and timing. It's very impressive. There's also a keen sense of melody at play that invokes nostalgic early 2000s kind of 100 Reasons vibes without being old-fashioned about it. Trep and Witz brings most straight-ahead riffing on this record, but that's straight ahead in terms of this record. It's still acutely intelligent, and the beats are still swung. Tongue brings twinkling, reverberated acoustic guitars and gorgeous vocals, both lead and backing. A lovely respite from the chaos, but we don't get too comfy because this kitten becomes a lion again. Then we're on to our final hurrah with No Living Thing, and they're not going out quietly. Fed back guitars bring to mind Glassjaw at their finest, with beautiful melodies sharing the same space as the distorted chaos and making perfect sense. We dissolve into a lovely wandering midsection before we hit our final push to the end of what has been an incredibly emotional journey. If we don't see Pleiades making a huge impact over the next 12 months, I personally will be having a tantrum. This band deserve and they demand your attention. Listen to them, watch them live. They are another wonderful reason to get excited about music at the moment. Post something, post everything. Pleiades are awesome. Number 9. Hello, and you're back here once again with Foodinati UK Presents Heavy Rotation. Now, this next review is for Gruzja, and it's called Cognac Wakasiji. Okay, first, a statement. The third album from Gruzja, entitled Cognac Wakasiji, will be released on the 6th of October and will be an illogical continuation of the band's career so far. Guests include Lamo, Mold, Perturbator and Unknown People. Right. Satanic Audio is responsible for the mixing and mastering, and it was recorded at Mac Records in the basement. Right, so there we go. Apparently Gruzja is a group of immigrants from Australia drawing on the folklore of Sudan and Sosnowiec, and the lineup consists of artists, instrumentalists and vocalists formerly known from Furia, Ostraza, Basie, Thor, Mentor, Lico and several other bands. Right, so strap in. Here's the disclaimer, right? There's many track titles on this album I cannot pronounce. I probably mispronounced everything so far. This is where written reviews win over video reviews, but I'm going to carry on. So here we go. Right, first track, Jerusalem Shore. Thanks for that, guys. It's a rather gnarly piece of punk rock hardcore with a venomous vocal leading the charge. It's gnarly, straight out of the box this is. It's music to break stuff to. I'm going to say it. I'm hooked already, right? And then strangely melodic synths come in. And vocals with hints of darkwave. I'm like, okay, didn't see that. We're in uncharted territory. It's set out its stall. This isn't going to be an easy ride. Next up, Alexandria opens with distorted keyboard, which gives away to black metal punk charge and unhinged post-rock touches. And this is extraordinary too. Like, you're away on this ride and just open your arms up, embrace the madness. There's lots of it coming. And sounds like there are a few vocalists present. And then it just self-destructs in a hail of broken electronics and leads into Pomnik, and it's the last track. Pomnik is the last track that I'm going to be comfortable with saying properly. It's a droned out glitch electronica interlude with a very serious sounding spoken word passage over it. This happens a few times during the album. There are these, I'm sure, very serious spoken word passages, and the electronica behind it splutters and bleeps menacingly as though something really nasty is coming, and it does. The next track is a blistering D-beat charge, and it's got some like really gargled, dark throny type vocals, which then slip into some sort of Rammstein-y type vocals, and then back into the dark throny vocals. And the black metal presence makes itself felt a few times in this album. Actually, there's a few black metal touches, but they're not overtly. They're just part of the sonic stew. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. And then next up, we've got a lurching hell beast of a tune that turns into a psych rock workout, tailor-made for clubs that you've been warned about. Your mum wouldn't want you going to these places. This is dark, this is seedy, this is sweat dripping off the walls. It's probably the best night of your life. And then we go into a Moda Nana Whiskey, which I'm almost certain I've said wrong. With lo-fi distorted electronics sounding like a modified analog arcade that's turned into a nightmare. I'm guessing Perturbator had something to do with that. Then it's on to the next track, which is a warehouse punk, post-punk attack in the 80s. Kinda almost poppy. Very almost. Then, you know, by the time it's Salinka, and that's a circuit bent, broken beat kind of thing. And I'm safe in the knowledge that for the third time this week, I'm saying I found a new favourite band. That's happened 3 times this week. This is a good time for music. Right, so, and then we're into Do Bokoju, which, honestly, I'm sounding rubbish here. And, yeah, it's another interlude of guitar noise, which has followed a track before it, which was glitched out electronica, which you'd hear from the likes of Pole or Tekra. This is how eclectic this album is, honestly. We're jumping all over the place. And then the spoken words are back. And then blast beats. Blast beats come through, and a kind of defiant delivery we heard on the first Kevlar Attack record, maybe? Kind of punky, blackened, kind of charged. That's the title track. And yeah, really, you know, for the title track, it evokes memories of when I first saw Kevlar Attack, and that was quite amazing and unpronounceable as well. So then we're into Wojna Domowa, which is a straight ahead death punk metal stomper, which in the context of this record is actually the most conventional thing on the record. And then we're signing off with a Perturbator remix of a track that was on earlier on called Skuik Selpal, which I chickened out of saying earlier, but who cares now. Equal parts hardcore punk and 80s style, like Axel F kind of keyboards that wouldn't be out of place in the battle scene of a Transformers cartoon. If you were there, you know what I'm talking about. And then it just dies in a big ball of 80s B-movie horror kind of keys, which, again, if you've seen those awful movies from the 80s, not the ones you've heard of, the ones you haven't heard of, the kind of soundtrack to that is what it sort of dissolves into. And then I Need to Lie Down. That was like being at the scariest, weirdest, most dangerous club in the world ever and having the night of your life. Number 8. Hi and welcome back to Foodinati UK presents Heavy Rotation, and this time we're talking about the brilliant new album by Hex Vessel, Polar Veil. Right, let's get into this. This is drama. This is melodrama. This is stuff of ethereal dreams and My Dying Bride style moroseness. This starts with The Tundra's Awake. It sets the scene with tremolo pick guitars that would be almost black metal if it wasn't so tuneful and celebratory sounding. But then, between the beautiful, there is menace. There's lots of menace in equal parts. It's quite the opener. Then that sneaks into Older Than the Gods. This is an immensely dramatic sounding tune. It sounds like something older than the gods. It stamps authority with chants and sounds like the sky is opening up when, like sunshine through a storm, comes the melodies and the main vocal line, which is gorgeous, mournful vocal, but in like a major key, so it sounds quite hopeful in a way, in amongst all the bleakness. And then what sounds like a bunch of crazed berserkers comes through the mix, like bellowing and snarling in the back, and it sounds like it's going to get very, very painful in here. So, Listen to the River. It's as dramatic and gothic as it sounds, and it, once again, it is reminiscent of My Dying Bride with its slow motion tempo and its mournful cries. Followed up, we have A Cabin in Montana. Now, this is a very beautiful piece of descriptive music. It sounds as desolate and as cold and as isolated as A Cabin in Montana. If that's what they were going for, and I'm sure it was. That's what they've done. It's absolutely beautiful. But then we have Eternal Meadow, which sounds kind of pretty. Eternal Meadow, yeah, that sounds kind of pretty. It's underpinned by blast beats, and they're just clattering away there with droned out guitars, and this sounds very, very, very beautiful to my ears. It's one of those perfect moments where like discordant noise can hit a point of bliss, and it's masterful. It's absolutely masterful. Then we get into like crepuscular creatures, and it lurches into view, and it's getting further and further into the void. This is dark stuff. It's really started to sort of ramp up with the vocal. Once again, reminiscent of Aaron from Night Down Bride, with this desperate, mournful cry into the ether. Ring arrives, and you thought you were going to get a little bit of respite from all the darkness. You don't. You just go further and further into the darkness, and you just think there's no way back. And then in it comes the last track, Homeward, and it's like a cloud of reverberation and blast beats, and you think, have I died? We're not in Kansas anymore. We have passed on to another place, and it's like we are drifting towards the light. This album is a masterclass in storytelling through sonics. It's a must for fans of ethereal doomy music and gothic drama. Once again, simply masterful. Number 7.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Foodinati UK presents Heavy Rotation, and this time we're looking at the Infernal Sea's new album Hell Fenwick on Candlelight Records. 3 years after the release of their critically acclaimed album Negotium Crucis, the faceless fiends of the Infernal Sea return with their latest offering. The black metal entities take us further down the darkened path on their 4th studio album Hell Fenwick, which will rise from the burning ashes of heretics on 26th of January 2024 via Candlelight Records. The Infernal Sea has been a plague on this earth since 2011, composing fierce and terrifying black metals from the fenlands of England, conjuring compelling tales of English and European history throughout the medieval period. Heralding from the east of England an area of bleak, flat desolation that echoes through their music, much of the Infernal Sea's storytelling draws from this area. New album Hell Fenwick centres around the brutal persecution of men and women by the most infamous Witchfinder General Matthew Hopkins, who was most active throughout the East Anglia area. It tells of his obsession, his religious fervour and brutality, and ultimately his downfall. We say, blasting forth with Lord Abhorrent, full of hellbound fury, this is proper black metal through and through, but with a definite sense of classic metal songwriting and very catchy riffing. The Infernal Sea have always managed to be equal parts brutal and strangely melodic and hypnotising, and this firmly sets the scene with a great extended last vocal note on here. I love it when bands do that. Shadow of the Beast gives you no time to catch your breath as its icy cold blizzard blasts through the speakers. The production here is satisfyingly crunchy and vintage sounding. The vocals rasp and fry shriek with great tonality, backed up with forceful bellowing backing vocals. There's a very English sound to the Infernal Sea's delivery, which must be a result of the melodic nature of the lead parts. It definitely has this very great British sound. Next up is Witchfinder, a track that I'm well acquainted with for reasons that you'll find out in time. Oh, mystery. A great galloping track that almost sounds Maiden-esque. Telling the story of the Witchfinder General, of course, a very well-timed look at horrific English history as horror folk stories are all the rage right now if we look at Green Lung's recent successes in that genre of storytelling. This track possesses a wonderful live sing-along refrain of hang, 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 hang the witch. I think I've done enough hangs there. That should prove very, very popular as a sing-along at future live events, so watch out for that. For the first time also we went into straight ahead UK heavy metal / hard rock territory for the outro. The Hunter blasts forward with an almost primordial feeling in the riffing, very windswept and interesting, reflecting the wild nature of the track. A well-placed Thomas G. Warrior style ooh, and we're into a feral midsection rattling your cage thoroughly. They're dancing on your graves with reckless abandon. Absolutely killer tune. Lead single Bastard of the East is up next, and marching forward with evil intent, another tale of Witchfinder General Matthew Hopkins. Again, very British, very steeped in folklore. There's a thread running through this album musically and thematically that gives it a classic Hammer horror sort of vibe that fits like a glove and sets the Infernal Sea apart from their black metal peers. Black Witchery is a D-beat thrasher with an almost punky vibe, reminding me of Wartane at their most rabble-rousing. Hyperspeed, frantic leads and rattling bass breakdowns make this a future live killer. Frozen Fen takes its foot off the gas but not the intensity. An eerie atmospheric track that builds drama and tension before our finale, and it's a beautiful finale. Messenger of God, introducing itself with acoustic guitars before breaking into a violin-led, deep atmospheric black metal track. One for fans of the likes of My Dying Bride or Wolves in the Throne Room in its tone and execution. The strings and guitars being a much welcome addition here and adding so much brightness and theatre to the sonic stew. It's a mournful, beautiful track that plays the dark and light shades to glorious effect. A perfect end to a near perfect black metal album. There's so much to savour here, and at 8 tracks it says everything it needs to say and leaves you gobsmacked and spellbound without ever dragging. It's a triumph and should see the Infernal Sea take their place in the upper echelons of not just black metal, but UK heavy metal in general. Thanks for listening. 6.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Foodinati UK presents Heavy Rotation, and this time we're looking at Endseeker and their album Global Worming on Metal Blade. Death metal is the great undead of subgenres, rising again and again to take revenge on the living with maximum violence. Servants of the zombie code and masters of old school brutality, Germany's Endseeker have made it their intent to kill again. This is more apparent over the last 9 years, and formed in Hamburg in 2014, the quintet have swiftly built up a reputation as one of European death metal's most dynamic wrecking crews. They're the words of the legendary Dom Lawson. We say, huge bass-heavy buzzsaw riffing and D-beat barrage accompanies truly unhinged vocals, and this thing is alive. Global Worming is the title track and album opener here. With a killer chorus, this ticks every box for what I look for in old school death metal, but kicking and screaming into 2023, almost 2024 now. Hell is here is the claim, and I'm not betting against these guys. Swedish influenced guitar tone is the order of the day, with that HM2 worship in full gnarly glory. This is simply epic and dangerous sounding, with tons of grooves and that all-important catchy riffing. A blistering middle eight and a guitar solo followed, the latter showing restraint and serving the track rather than showboating. And when we click back into the main beef of the track, god damn it's heavy. Violence is Gold is a circle pit feeding frenzy that it has that DB in full effect, Blood will certainly be spilt to this track. It's ironic that death metal can make me feel so alive. Wheel of Torture changes pace slightly to a mid-pace headbanger's dream, switching to a slow, torturous wail of pained vocals that certainly fits the title. Heavy as a gas bill in winter, this is serious stuff. If you, like me, are missing Entombed a lot, this will certainly fill a gap in your listening. That's not to say this is a copy, they just have a lot of the same elements that made that band so amazing. CBV signals a callback to the bloodshed in the pit, with a crust punk influence lacing this toxic brew and gang vocals, soaring lead work, and nasty vampiric blood-letting sounds. Very deadly. Terror is a fearsome stomp indeed, with a chorus that sounds primed to be yelled at a muddy festival near you. It slows and dissolves and you're feeling slightly shell-shocked. And then Hanging Gardens is a groove-fueled monster with truly grimy vocal delivery. The vocals on this whole album are brilliant and definitely worthy of your attention. Not that it's asking for your attention, because you won't miss them. Right up in your face. Truly iconic riffing, blistering drumming. This album is simply dominating. Spluttering into life, our only life, is a foot down chaos and takes no prisoners as it decimates the competition. It's absolutely unreal. The stop-start cop gun blast in the centre of the track is a great touch and a perfect piece of ear candy that provokes proper screw faces all round. We end on Nemesis, with its moody intro bringing dramatic final curtain vibes, alongside church bells, because what's more metal than church bells, and grinding dirty riffs get down to business, stomping for authority all over the mix. And the mix should be mentioned here. The production is absolutely spot on and everything is present and as full on as is sonically possible. This album really, everything's in the right place. Everything is set to stun. It's heavy as you like. The last track seems to be saying goodbye as it wheezes and grinds and breathes its last breath. A brilliant end to a brilliant album. The best way to sum this up is, once again, I'm saying I have a new favourite death metal band in a year where I've said that a lot. Proper death metal is here. It's totally alive, angry, and it's coming for you. Thank you for listening.
5.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Foodinati UK presents Heavy Rotation, and this time we're looking at Svalbard's amazing new album, The Weight of the Mask. Thomas Holopainen once wrote, "Sing what you can't say," and this is exactly the approach I adopted for the lyrics on our 4th album. The words on this record are everything I keep silent in my day-to-day life. It's the lyrical equivalent of locking yourself in a bathroom so no one can hear you cry. The album is entitled The Weight of the Mask to symbolise the pressure of maintaining a semblance of cold normalcy when inside you're falling apart. But the album is also about the pain that lies behind the mask. They were the words of Serena Cherry, singer and front lady of Svalbard. And yeah, that sums it up quite nicely. This is what we said. Opening with recent Killer single Faking It, with its almost punky verses and floating tremolo-picked black metal sensibilities before the relentless drum barrage crushes us before the beautiful push and pull release dynamics are so well known for. They really are. It really is that grabbing you and releasing you, grabbing and releasing you. You notice it happen quite a lot through this album. Eternal Spirits waste no time in adopting those expansive black metal flourishes to evoke memories of wild landscapes, at least with me, and when the delicate floating clean vocals wash in, it's like sun on a stormy day. Breaking through the clouds, this is fast sounding music indeed. Equal measures, crushingly heavy and hauntingly beautiful. And we're only on track 2. Defiance enters almost sunny notes, if they weren't accompanied by blast beats and painful cries. And that is until the beautiful clean vocal drifts in and gives both light and shade, hearing their polar opposites but making perfect sense together. This is a method used by a lot of post-black metal acts, but it's absolutely perfected here. That idea of light and shade, harsh and beauty, like married together in just something that feels massive. The track concludes with firmly shouted statements of intent and indeed defiance. Yeah, for a track called Defiance, it definitely does that. November provides respite with its tapestry of interwoven pick guitars utilised to dramatic effect with spoken word passages, culminated in a blasting black metal charge full of passion and sorrowful tones. It sounds utterly heartbroken and beautiful. Lovely bit of respite in the middle of the album there. Lights Out comes thundering into view, and the most startling thing about this album comes to mind. It's so densely textured. Each element weaves and dances around the other elements beautifully in a wonderfully orchestrated way. When this track backs off into a gorgeous ethereal middle eight, it's like something just whisked you out of immediate peril, told you everything's okay, and then dropped you back into dangerous waters. It's a wonderful but intentional way to segue into how to swim down. And you really are in deep waters here, with ominous reverberating guitars and delicately sung vocals shimmering and feeling rather aquatic indeed. With shoegaze-drenched immersive guitar work and pummeling drums, you really feel the force of the track pulling you under. It's a brilliant example of music telling a story rather than words, which is something I talked about on the Hex Vessel review. These are wonderfully descriptive passages of music that say more than a million words could. It's genius songwriting. Be My Tomb flutters into brilliant celebratory riffs that reminds me of the best post-hardcore bands, and this is a great touch and one I missed on the first listen. Aside from the obvious black metal influences, there are riffs here that wouldn't sound out of place on the first 100 Reasons record, for instance. There's a lot of post-hardcore underneath here, around the black metal influences and around the post-metal expansive stuff as well. Using majors and minors, great effects, once again building texture and complexity. The opening guitar on Pillar in the Sand is a fine example of taking a perfectly beautiful sounding melody, pretty almost, and then changing the entire tone of it right at the end with a well-paced minor note. It's very clever songwriting, and it never lets you get too comfortable and making sure you're always guessing. Closer to wilt beneath the weight, screeches in to punish the pit, comprehensively with snarling immediately, reminding you, yes, they are a metal band, and this is how we do it in the pit. The sound of the track is the sound of an ender, as I call them. Like you used to have on skateboard parts, you'd have the big ender trick. This is the big ender track. It sounds like a victory lap, and it is. It's astonishingly good. You should now cement Svalbard in the revered category of metal artists, this select group where you see bands like Opeth and Cult of Luna mentioned. They belong in this category of bands now. They are now in the pantheon. Thank you for listening.
Four.
Hello and welcome back to Foodinati UK presents Heavy Rotation, and this time we're looking at a band called End, and this album is called The Sin of Human Frailty, and it's out on Closed Casket Activities. They say part of the goal was to do things our way, states Putney. We didn't want to lean into our influences too heavily, whether it's in terms of production, guitar tone, arrangement or other elements. We were just like, let's make a record that sounds like End. I feel like there's more of an identity to the band than there's ever been on this record. The final result is a unique blend of HM2 driven grind and metallic hardcore crossover with moments of industrial chaos over 10 tracks, featuring guest vocal appearances by J.R. Hayes from Pig Destroyer, Debbie Goff from Harriers, Dylan Walker, Full of Hell, and this Graphic Nature audio recording clocks in at over 30 minutes of unhinged aggression and grind. Right, that's what they say. We say, a predator yourself blasts and grinds into view, and the most striking thing is how direct and forceful the production is here. It's absolutely fantastic with amazing effects and myriad switch-ups, and it's quite the opener. Gaping Wounds of Earth stutters into lurching riffing and a slower tempo for now. Quickly, we're off to faster territories. Tonally, this album is very impressive with so many different ways to mangle a guitar sound displayed and in a really state-of-the-art fashion. The title track, Sin of Human Frailty, is almost conventional in comparison to the tracks that have come before, but make no mistake, this is just in comparison to the tracks before, because it would still make the most hardened grind fans pull screw faces and be very satisfied indeed. Thor is next, and it's expertly done industrial electronic edition. And it really marks the album out as something special, as we get an injection of grimy gothic warehouse energy that's right up my alley, I have to say. Very surprising and very welcome. This is a very innovative record. Embodiment of Grief enters on mournful minor cadence into a tight blast of precise grinding perfection. This is the best version of this I've heard since Wormrot's last album, really, and it's got echoes of Converge, especially on the guitar delivery. Twice Devoured Killed follows on a mid-pace banger with those frantic shifting stabs and effects poking out of the sludge. There's so much to love here as it dissolves into static effects and reverb. You really do find yourself catching your breath quite a few times, and that's the best hallmark of this kind of record, of a grindcore influence or just straight up grindcore record, is you do find yourself out of breath. Right, Worthless is the Lamb is straight up grindcore of the best kind, and almost serves as something slightly more stable and recognisable on an album like this, until drones and tremolo picking bring us back to the unpredictable. Hollow Urn is a dark, electronically assisted descent into heavy black industrial metal landscape, and it's a very well placed detour on this record, once again letting you catch your breath. Infest resumes the blasting, and that amazing unpredictable guitar playing is scorching earth around it. Tight and rabid and utterly dangerous sounding. Final track, Leper, enters on apocalyptic open chords, and when I say that, they are huge. And it's into neck-snapping, head-banging territory. This is a supremely dark and huge sounding tune. I should mention that the drumming on this album is absolutely incredible, because keeping up with this music has to be an immense physical and mental task, so absolute scenes on that. The vocals too, absolutely exemplary. All the way bristling with authority and emotion. It sounds tortured. It sounds like fierce. It's exactly what you want. As we lurch to the conclusion of this awesome album, I can only say this is a masterclass in heaviness and a must listen to fans of for fans of Pig Destroyer, Wormrot, Full of Hell, Napalm Death. Actually, pretty much any extreme metal fan should listen to this right now. This is awesome. This is End. Three. Hello and welcome to Foodinati Presents Heavy Rotation, and this time we're looking into the incredible new album by Tesseract, War of Being. Right, War of Being album, long awaited. It's been 5 years since the release of the last studio album, and this is possibly the most significant creative moment in their career. Tesseract are Daniel Tompkins, Akli Khani, James Monteith, Amos Williams, and Jay Pastones. Natural disaster rolls in, goes straight for you in a way I haven't heard since Dillinger Escape Plan. There are blissful trademark tempo shifts and just soaring vocals alongside the aggression. It's only a couple of minutes in and we've already had 3 curveballs. This is something we're going to have to buckle up for. Dan has developed a raspy, harsh vocal that definitely echoes that Dillinger Escape Plan delivery and is the perfect agitator alongside his well-known, instantly recognisable clean vocals. Expansive at times, taut and tight at others. Goosebumps already, and it's track 1. Echoes explodes into a celebratory melody at the beginning before we're into a shuffling groove and those big arena-filling choruses that we've come to love. Absolutely huge. With stuttering urgency, this track certainly grabs you and whisks you up before serenading you on the way out in hushed tones. Recent single, The Grey, to my ears is one of the band's finest moments to date. And I have a feeling that this is something I'm going to be saying all the way through this record, because consistency is key here. Call to Arms, refrains and verses really hammers the point home before scattering guitar and bass licks. Play with your synapses. This is a bass player's dream of a track, and the bass in particular is very well represented in the mix. The production as a whole is very impressive. Everything is crystal clear. Everything is where it should be. It's gorgeous, and the rhythm section being so tight gives the guitars like room to play around and really explore that twin guitar attack. This is a masterclass for fans of each of the instruments on display. The amount of talent Tesseract possess is nothing short of obscene. It's clever without noodling. Everything here serves a purpose. Every note is vital and urgent. Mid-album respite arrives in the form of the perfectly titled Tender, which gives you a much needed rest, but not before it picks you up and throws you into the next track. And that track is the most ambitious debut single for an album I've heard in a long time, War of Being. This track dropped this summer, and I was covering a lot of gent and progressive metal festivals and interviewing a lot of those bands, and the shockwaves were palpable. Everybody knew Tesseract were returning to take back the crown. It was no mistake. Heavy and cerebral, and everything I love about this kind of music was on display, and it's crafted with urgency and attention to detail of a 3 Michelin-starred chef. Sorry, I had to get a food reference in somewhere. Typical of Tesseract to choose one of the longest and most continually evolving tracks on the album to herald their return. This is no pop song, buddy. Sirens rides in on pulsing electronic percussion and ethereal guitar phrases. Big respect to Jay Pastones. On drums, he's had quite the workout, masterful and emotive, as well as being technical and flawless. You don't hear the word emotive attached to a drummer's performance, but it really is. Everything on this album is emotive. It's something they excel at, and too often progressive metal is so showy that it becomes clinical and cold. This is quite the opposite in Tesseract's case, and this is their genius. Every track feels a deep emotional intelligence that really tugs on your heartstrings. Burden brings a dose of slinky funk to its shuffling beats, sounding like a party for extraterrestrials. This is a good thing, obviously. This is complex and really speaks to your hips in a really odd way. Final track, Sacrifice, floats in and wraps up the album perfectly, like an epilogue for the story you've just witnessed. This is a concept album. I haven't mentioned that. The whole thing has a narrative, and you don't need to know the entire story or the computer game that goes along with it to get wrapped up in it and know that this is musical storytelling. It's genius. Concept albums sometimes fall short. This one
just absolutely not. It's a wonderful closing statement, and it's a masterful one. I'm utterly speechless at the end of this ride. We're expecting greatness. We got a classic. This is utterly untouchable.
All you need is instant gratification. You desire nothing more.
2.
Hello and welcome back to Foodinati UK, and this time we're looking at Alluvial with their Death is But a Door EP on Nuclear Blast. Darkness and despair are the breeding ground for creativity in the right hands. Since their inception in 2017, Atlanta-based band Alluvial have embraced the grim and gloom that the world has to offer through an intricately balanced blend of rapid-fire polyrhythms, haunting sludgy atmosphere and tightly wound grooves. The band takes a stab at creating an even more sinister sound than their previous album Sarcoma on Death is But a Door. With the band's members being as ingrained in the death metal scene as they are, with members previously playing in The Faceless, Suffocation and more, listeners can rest assured that they'll be met with plenty of brutality throughout their music. The twists and turns into clean passages, atmospheric ambience, or any other musical adventures explored throughout Alluvial's music takes them over the edge and invites listeners to return and find something previously undiscovered. Well, we say, hold on to your hats, guys. This EP is stunning. The title track is a huge wash of powerful pummeling guitars and amazing light and shade dynamics. The intertwined vocals are superb. They definitely have my full undivided attention. The hardcore elements mingling with the huge doomy vistas, utterly spectacular. This is a new take on everything I like about extreme metal. Bog Dweller is set to stun, switching on blast attack, and we're in definitely deathly territory after the opening tracks like clean sung passages. It's utterly state of the art, and just when I thought I'd heard everything amazing in 2023, this arrives in my inbox. The pinch harmonic driven angular outro is just sublime on this track. It's like spidery, and if you like your Zakk Wylde pinch harmonics and your Dimebag Darrells, this band's really good at it, and I thought I'd heard every version of that. Right. Now, area code is Tech Death Heaven. Stop starting switching lanes at will before the meat and potatoes main riff crushes everything in its way. Switching up and literally screaming mosh pit devastation. My lip jaw is literally on the floor as the crazy unhinged guitar solo kills me stone dead. And Fog Belt screams in your face, literally, it has a pinch harmonic guitar squeal as part of the opening riff that is more outrageous than any you've ever heard. I promise you. Maybe Dimebag, but this is done in such a different way, you have to hear it. As I've said before, everything I love about modern metal, modern extreme metal, all represented in some way on this EP. It's intelligent, it's heavy, it's immaculately produced and performed, and I know you've all done your tracks of the year. You've done them way too soon. Thank you for listening.
And 1.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Foodinati UK presents Heavy Rotation, and the glasses are on because this one's serious. Green Lung, This Heathen Land. Green Lung are a cult band in every sense of the word. Formed in London in 2017, their first two records, Woodland Rights and Black Harvest, brought a folk horror sensibility to occult rock, attracting a fanatical following in their native UK and beyond. Now, 2 years later, after the release of the critically acclaimed Black Harvest, the band have unveiled their most ambitious offering yet. This Heathen Land is the most complete manifestation of the band's vision to date, fulfilling their long-held goal to, in the words of the vocalist Tom Templar, create the definitive soundtrack to the folk horror film in our heads. Right, strap in. We say, I saw Green Lung supporting Clutch and was immediately enraptured with their authentically vintage take on classic rock and metal. I'm already excited. The Forest Church intros with distinctly British 1970s documentary vibe, with retro synths setting the tone beautifully before the Forest Church bursts in with pure classic metal authority. Those organs adding so much vintage glory to this unholy sermon. This is classic in every sense of the word. That guitar tone. I am dishing out chef's kisses left and right. Blistering lead work and equally amazing keyboard solos. This is already kicking my arse. Big, big, big. Mountain Throne romps in on bouncy riffs and I'm trying to type whilst banging my head at the same time. This is not possible, unfortunately, but I'll persevere. Hooks for days. Those set piece breaks make me shout yes every time they do them, which is fairly often. If you listen to the album, you'll know what I mean. It's the breaks in the track and it's got a little vocal bit or a little guitar bit or something like that. It just keeps it all pacey, keeps it moving. It's so good. Right. Everything is represented and authentic here. The light phase touch, for instance, on the backing vocals. It's a tiny, vintage, minuscule detail that you'll have heard on something. But it makes me smile every time. I'd be surprised if they didn't go the whole hog and record this to tape. And being a lover of the old ways, because I'm old. Maxine swaggers in and that organ sound is so great and kitschy. Perfectly pitched. Is every track on this album an anthem? I'm beginning to ask myself, because all of them, whoa. Vocal harmonies, everything is so well detailed, no stone is left unturned, even the art is incredible. It's a kind of penguin book on the occult, to my eyes anyway. Even the font is spot on, every attention to detail is incredible. One for Sorrow lurches in on a monolithic riff after an analog synth intro before we're back in Moog, I think, heaven, for a while on the verse before a very dramatic chorus. Once again, all boxes ticked for everything that hooked me to metal in the first place. My only wish is that I'd heard this when I was 12, although I was busy listening to classic rock when I was 12, so yeah. One for Sorrow is the first foray on this album into more restrained territory, but it's still heavy as you like, with truly neck-busting middle section riff that just slays. Did I mention the synth sounds again? They're so well chosen. They are just so much more than ear candy on this record. They truly have an important place in this band. Quite often, keyboard, it seems a bit token in bands. This takes front and centre. This is very good. This is just as important as the guitars. It's a very important part of this sound. Songs of the Stone enters on Celtic drums and acoustic guitars and floods the speakers with pure flower power vibes, and you can see spring meadows in this as you float along on its synth-accompanied zenith. It's the laid-back respite track, and it's beautifully done. It's not just tossed out there. It, again, really detailed, and it's proper, Sunday afternoon with your favourite smokables tune. The Ancient Way slaps us round the chops. Wake up, it's time for a history lesson. And if this is the Ancient Way, then maybe I don't feel so bad about my age after all, because this rocks hard. The guitar work on the display is flawless, the harmonies sing and the solos soar, all whilst reminding me why vintage sounds are the best sounds to my ears. In a world of over-compressed, uninspired formula rock, this puts a huge grin on my face. Great songwriting, huge hooks, memorable riffs. Oh, it's hard not to just absolutely love it. And as much as the first time when I saw them live. Hunters in the Sky, hell yeah, I'm tagging along on this ride. And those vocal harmonies over galloping riffs are pure Queen, and I am sold on this track. Vocally, I love the performance here. It's literally perfect for this type of music. In fact, there's nothing in this band I would change. Those King Diamond-esque high notes are great too. Sadly, we're at the final track already. Oceans of Time intros with delicious 70s sci-fi synths and erupts. Majestic leads get me pulling screw faces. This is as epic as it should be. And if you're not air grabbing and fist punching along, I'm afraid I fear you may be dead inside. On an album this good, they couldn't go out on a whimper, and the challenge was accepted, it seems. I'm running out of superlatives here, and I fear I am gushing too much, but this is damn near perfect heavy metal hard rock album. Even if its running time is perfect too, because you can bet your ass I'm putting it on from the beginning again. Holy shit, can somebody just pick my jaw up?
So there you have it. Foodinati's rundown of the top 10 albums that we've reviewed in 2023. Coming up next, we have our top 5 hot sauces of 2023, and then on the 3rd of January 2024, Season 4, Foodinati UK. You do not want to miss it. Keep it locked.